Bullies messed with wrong girl, she broke their wrists in self-defense. A story by Heartfelt Tales. The cafeteria fell silent as Maya Chen walked through the double doors of Lincoln High School for the first time. Her midnight black hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she wore a modest plaid skirt that her grandmother had insisted would help her fit in at her new American school. What the other students didn't know was that beneath Maya's quiet exterior lay years of disciplined martial arts training and a steel resolve forged by countless hours in her grandfather's dojo back in Taiwan. If you're enjoying this story of courage and standing up to bullies, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and don't forget to subscribe to Heartfelt Tales for more inspiring stories that touch the heart. Maya had moved to Portland just 2 weeks ago when her mother accepted a position at the local hospital. Leaving behind everything familiar, her friends, her martial arts school, her grandfather who had been her mentor since childhood, had been the hardest thing she'd ever done. But her mother needed this fresh start after her father's death in a car accident the previous year, and Maya was determined to be strong for both of them. The first few days at Lincoln High had been a blur of new faces, confusing hallways, and the overwhelming challenge of navigating American teenage social dynamics. Maya kept to herself, eating lunch alone while reading her favorite books, hoping that if she stayed invisible, she could avoid the complications that came with being the outsider. But invisibility was a luxury she wouldn't be granted for long. It was during her second week that she first encountered the group that would change everything. Jake Morrison, Tyler Brooks, and Marcus Chen, ironically sharing her last name though they were unrelated, were known throughout the school as the Untouchables. Jake's father was a prominent lawyer, Tyler's family owned half the commercial real estate in town, and Marcus's mother sat on the school board. They had learned early that privilege could shield them from consequences, and they wielded that knowledge like a weapon. Maya first noticed them in the hallway between classes, watching as they accidentally bumped into smaller students, knocking books from their hands and laughing as papers scattered across the floor. She saw them corner a freshman boy near the lockers, demanding his lunch money while teachers conveniently looked the other way. But it wasn't until they set their sights on her that Maya truly understood the depth of their cruelty. It started small. Jake would accidentally bump into her desk, sending her pencils rolling across the floor. Tyler would make loud comments about foreign food whenever Maya unpacked her lunch. Marcus would imitate what he thought was an Asian accent whenever she spoke in class, earning snickers from his followers. Maya endured it all in silence, remembering her grandfather's teachings about patience and choosing battles wisely. But their harassment escalated when they realized her silence wasn't submission, it was restraint. The incident that would change everything happened on a Thursday afternoon. Maya was walking to her locker after her last class when she felt someone grab the back of her skirt. She spun around to find Jake grinning maliciously, his hand still reaching toward her. "Hey, Chen," he sneered, using her last name like an insult. "We were just wondering if all girls from your country dress like schoolgirls, or if you're just trying to get attention." Tyler and Marcus flanked him, creating a semicircle that blocked Maya's path to her locker. Several other students had stopped to watch, but none moved to help. Maya felt her heart racing, but her voice remained steady. "Please move," she said quietly. "I need to get to my locker." "Oh, she's being polite," Marcus mocked. "How cute. Maybe we should teach her some American manners." Before Maya could react, Jake reached out again, this time grabbing the hem of her skirt and giving it a sharp tug. The fabric twisted around her legs, and Maya felt the familiar burn of humiliation she'd worked so hard to overcome. But this time, something deeper ignited within her, not just anger, but a fierce protective instinct that her grandfather had taught her to recognize. "Leave me alone," Maya said, her voice carrying a warning that the boys were too arrogant to heed. "Or what?" Tyler stepped closer, his breath hot against her face. "You'll run crying to mommy?" "Oh wait, I heard your daddy isn't around to protect you anymore." The mention of her father was the final straw. Maya felt something shift inside her, like a dam breaking after holding back years of pressure. Her grandfather's voice echoed in her mind, "True strength is not about hurting others, Maya. It's about protecting yourself and those who cannot protect themselves. But when someone crosses that line, when they threaten your dignity or safety, you have not just the right but the responsibility to defend yourself." When Jake reached for her skirt a third time, Maya moved with a speed and precision that caught everyone off guard. Years of training had taught her to read body language, to anticipate movement, to turn an opponent's aggression against them. As Jake's hand approached her, she grabbed his wrist with both hands, pivoted her body, and applied a joint lock that her grandfather had taught her when she was 12. The crack of Jake's wrist breaking echoed through the hallway like a gunshot. His scream of pain was immediate and piercing, causing several students to gasp and step back. But Maya wasn't finished. Tyler, shocked by his friend's injury, instinctively reached toward her, and Maya responded with the same swift efficiency. She caught his arm, twisted it behind his back, and applied pressure to his wrist until she heard the same sickening crack. Tyler's scream joined Jake's, and suddenly the hallway was filled with chaos. Students were pulling out their phones, teachers were running toward the commotion, and Marcus was backing away with his hands raised, his face pale with shock and fear. "I'm sorry," Maya said, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. "I asked you to stop." The aftermath was swift and complicated. Both boys were rushed to the hospital with broken wrists. Maya was immediately suspended pending an investigation. The school was in an uproar, with parents demanding explanations and students sharing videos of the incident that had been captured on phones. But something unexpected began to happen in the days that followed. Students who had been victims of the three bullies began to speak up. Sarah Martinez, a shy sophomore, came forward about how Jake had cornered her in the library and made inappropriate comments about her body. David Kim, a freshman, revealed how Tyler had been extorting lunch money from him for months. Emma Thompson shared how Marcus had spread rumors about her that had destroyed her reputation and friendships. Maya's mother, Dr. Linda Chen, sat across from the principal's desk 3 days later, her face composed but her eyes blazing with protective fury. She had spent hours listening to Maya's account of the months of harassment, the escalating threats, and the final incident that had pushed her daughter to defend herself. "My daughter has been the victim of sustained bullying and harassment," Dr. Chen said firmly. "She endured months of verbal abuse, physical intimidation, and sexual harassment. When she finally defended herself, you want to punish her for it?" Principal Roberts shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The investigation had revealed a pattern of behavior from Jake, Tyler, and Marcus that the school had failed to address. Worse, several teachers admitted they had witnessed incidents but had chosen not to report them, either out of fear of confronting the boys' powerful parents or because they assumed the harassment wasn't serious enough to warrant intervention. "Dr. Chen," the principal began, "I understand your concerns," but Maya's response was extreme. She seriously injured 2 students. 2 students who were sexually harassing her, Dr. Chen replied. 2 students who had been tormenting her for weeks while your staff looked the other way. My daughter asked them to stop. She tried to walk away. They followed her, cornered her, and put their hands on her inappropriately. What exactly did you expect her to do? The question hung in the air like a challenge. Maya sat beside her mother, her hands folded in her lap, watching the principal struggle to find an answer that would justify punishing her for defending herself. The resolution came from an unexpected source. Dr. James Morrison, Jake's father, requested a meeting with Maya and her mother. Maya had expected anger, threats, maybe even a lawsuit. Instead, she found a man who looked exhausted and ashamed. "I want to apologize," Dr. Morrison said, his voice heavy with regret. "Not just for what Jake did to you, but for how we raised him. His mother and I, we enabled his behavior. We made excuses for him. We used our influence to protect him from consequences instead of teaching him to be a better person." He paused, looking directly at Maya. "You have every right to press charges against him. You have every right to be angry. But I'm asking you to give him a chance to make this right. He's agreed to therapy. He's agreed to community service. He wants to apologize to you personally and to every student he's ever bullied." Maya looked at her mother, then back at Dr. Morrison. Her grandfather had always taught her that true strength sometimes meant showing mercy, but only when the person seeking it was genuinely committed to change. "I'll consider it," Maya said finally. "But I want to see real change. Not just apologies, but actions. And I want him to understand that his behavior has consequences that go beyond broken bones." The meeting with Tyler's parents was less productive. They remained defensive and blamed Maya for overreacting. But Marcus's mother, upon learning the full extent of her son's behavior, broke down in tears and begged Maya's forgiveness. When Maya returned to school the following week, she found a very different environment. The story had spread throughout the district, and suddenly other students who had been victims of bullying felt empowered to speak up. Teachers were more vigilant about intervening in conflicts. The school implemented new policies about harassment and created anonymous reporting systems. But perhaps the most significant change was in Maya herself. She no longer tried to be invisible. She joined the school's martial arts club, which had been struggling with low enrollment, and began teaching self-defense classes to other students. She started a support group for victims of bullying, creating a safe space where students could share their experiences and learn coping strategies. Jake, true to his father's promise, did make an effort to change. He underwent therapy, performed community service, and personally apologized to Maya and dozens of other students he had victimized. The process was slow and sometimes painful, but he seemed genuine in his commitment to becoming a better person. Tyler, however, transferred to a private school after his parents threatened to sue the district. Maya never saw him again, but she heard through mutual friends that he continued his pattern of bullying behavior at his new school. Marcus fell somewhere in between. He made a public apology and completed his community service, but Maya could tell his remorse was more about getting in trouble than about understanding the harm he had caused. Still, his behavior toward her and other students improved dramatically. 6 months later, Maya stood in the same hallway where the incident had occurred, but everything was different. She was surrounded by friends from her martial arts club, students she had helped through her support group, and teachers who had become her advocates. The shy, invisible girl who had walked through these halls in silence was gone, replaced by someone who had learned that standing up for herself meant standing up for others too. Her grandfather visited from Taiwan that spring, and Maya showed him around her school with pride. As they walked through the hallways, students waved and called out friendly greetings. In the martial arts room, her grandfather watched as Maya led a class of 20 students through basic self-defense moves. "You have learned the most important lesson," he told her afterward. "Strength without compassion is just violence." But compassion without strength is just weakness. You have found the balance. Maya smiled, thinking about how much her life had changed since that first day in the cafeteria. She had learned that sometimes the biggest bullies were just people who had never been taught to be better, and that sometimes the best way to stop a bully was to show them what real strength looked like. The broken wrists healed within weeks, but the lessons learned from that day would last a lifetime. Maya had not just defended herself, she had helped create a school environment where other students felt safe to do the same. She had turned a moment of violence into a catalyst for positive change. As she walked home that day, Maya reflected on her journey from victim to survivor to advocate. She had learned that courage wasn't the absence of fear, it was acting despite the fear. She had discovered that her grandfather's teachings about honor and responsibility were not just philosophical concepts but practical tools for navigating the complex world of teenage social dynamics. Most importantly, she had learned that standing up for herself didn't make her a bully, it made her a role model for others who needed to find their own strength. The incident that had started with humiliation and harassment had become a story of empowerment and transformation. Maya had broken more than just 2 wrists that day, she had broken a cycle of bullying that had gone unchallenged for too long. And in doing so, she had found not just her voice, but her purpose. Thank you for watching this inspiring story about courage, standing up to bullies, and finding strength in difficult times. Maya's journey reminds us that sometimes we have to fight for our dignity and that real strength comes from protecting ourselves and others. If this story touched your heart, please give it a like, share it with friends who might need to hear it, and subscribe to Heartfelt Tales for more stories that inspire and uplift. Remember, you are stronger than you know, and you deserve to be treated with respect. Until next time, keep your hearts open and your spirits strong. ****